The canto begins on page 151, and there's an introductory section which explains how Asvapati sees this kingdom. He's exploring all the planes of existence. He's reached this plane of the little life. In the previous canto, he had looked at the development of forms, of the living creatures emerging from matter, living creatures. Now he goes to a deeper level. What are the states of consciousness that are behind those forms? And we were reading about these little beings. They're really not very pleasant. He sees them like little imps and goblins and mischievous spirits. And he's told us that in that realm, they are the ones that are the dominant species. Everything there is carried out under their influence. But then he told us that their influence is not only there. Their influence extends to all half-conscious worlds. Wherever there are soulless minds and guideless lives, and in a small body, self is all that counts. Wherever love and light and largeness lack, these crooked fashioners take up their task. They are working everywhere where there are small consciousnesses, small, mean, ungenerous beings. So here too, in our world, these beings have a lot of influence. Here too, these godlings, these little spirits, they drive our human hearts. They lurk in the twilight, the dark, shadowy areas of our consciousness. So it means that even here in our human world, where we should have higher levels of consciousness, here too, the darkened, primitive heart obeys the veiled suggestions of a hidden mind. There's a kind of mind ruling in that world secretly, undercover. And that hidden mind, even in our world, it is shadowing our consciousness, our knowledge, with misleading light. That mind, that perverted, petty, mean, mischievous mind stands between us human beings and the truth that saves. It's not very nice to read about this, but it's very important that Sri Aurobindo makes us aware that everything may look very nice on the surface, but all these unpleasant, crooked influences are acting on us from behind. If we are aware of that, then we can be on our guard against them. Resist their suggestions. But if we are just ignorant, as most human beings are, spontaneously we respond to their suggestions and their conspiracies and plots. So we'll start reading at line 81, please, Martin, on page 153.
You have it.
Hmm?
You have it.
I have to read first, right? That's where I'm going to start to read. All right. We start with the word it. That it refers to that secret mind, that hidden mind, which speaks to us with the voices of the night. Our darkened lives to greater darkness move. Our seekings listen to calamitous hopes. A structure of unseeing thoughts is built, and reason used by an irrational force. This earth is not alone our teacher and nurse. The powers of all the worlds have entrance here. In their own fields, they follow the wheel of law and cherish the safety of a settled type. On earth, out of their changeless orbit thrown, their law is kept, lost their fixed form of things. Into a creative chaos they are cast, where all asks order, but is driven by chance. Strangers to earth nature, they must learn earth's ways. Aliens or opposites, they must unite. They work and battle, and with pain agree. These join, those part, all parts and joins anew. But never can we know and truly live till all have found their divine harmony. Our life's uncertain way winds circling on. Our mind's unquiet search asks always light, till they have learned their secret in their source, in the light of the timeless and its spaceless home, in the joy of the eternal soul and one. But now the light supreme is far away. Our conscious life obeys the inconscious laws. To ignorant purposes and blind desires, our hearts are moved by an ambiguous force. Even our mind's conquests wear a battered crown. A slowly changing order binds our will. This is our doom until our souls are free. A mighty hand then rolls mind's firmaments back. Infinity takes up the finite's acts, and nature steps into the eternal light. Then only ends this dream of nether life. You'll start, Suresh?
It speaks to us with the voice of the night. Our darkened lives to greater darkness more. Our seeking listen to calamitous hopes, a structure of unseen thoughts is built, and reason used by an
irrational
force.
Yes. So this hidden mind, which is casting a shadow on everything that we do, that stands between us and the truth that saves. This hidden mind speaks to us with the voices of the night, of the darkness. We are living in the ignorance, so our lives are darkened anyway. But under those darker influences, we get even darker and move towards a greater darkness. We may have aspirations and wishes for higher things, but even those seekings, they listen to calamitous hopes that lead us to disaster. Calamity is disaster. Because through the influence of that hidden mind that builds up a structure, a construction of unseeing thoughts that are not full of light and luminous truth. A structure of unseeing, blind thoughts is built. And that hidden mind uses our reason, but it uses it in an irrational way. If we could really listen always to the voice of our higher reason, that would already give us some protection. But these suggestions are coming from that hidden mind, and they give us good reasons for doing really irrational things that lead us to calamity. So how is it that this can happen? He explains it in the next lines. Alice.
This earth is not alone our teacher and nurse. The powers of all the worlds have entrance here. In their own fields they follow the wheel of law and cherish the safety of a settled type. On earth, out of their changeless orbit thrown, their law is kept, lost their fixed form of things.
Right. So this is important for us to know, that this earth, this material universe, this planet that we live on, is not the only influence which teaches and nurses and nourishes and feeds us. No? In earlier cantos, especially Book 2, Canto 1, Sri Aurobindo has shown us that there's many different levels of existence. And all those levels of existence are connected to each of us individually. It's as if we're carrying all those possibilities in us. We get nourished by influences from those many different planes. The powers of all the worlds can enter here into our material world and into our consciousness. In their own fields, in their own worlds and realms, they follow a particular law that belongs to that realm, to that nature. And they remain somehow safely contained within a particular form of behavior. Cherish, they hold on to and value the safety of a settled type. They are the beings typical of their own world. So they're there in place. But when they come into our world, then they come into confusion. On earth, they're thrown out of that changeless orbit, always following the safety of their settled type. They are cast here on earth, they are cast into a state of creative chaos, of disorder, out of which something can grow. That's the unique characteristic of our world. It's very, very important that we are open to the influences of all these worlds. And here on earth, they have the possibility of changing also. So when those beings, when they come here, they are cast into this kind of creative chaos. That's maybe why we see so much confusion in the world around us. There are influences of all kinds from all over are coming and expressing themselves through human beings. In this creative chaos, everything's looking for order, for harmony, for fixity. No? But here, things are driven by chance. There isn't a fixed order. Anything may pop up and happen and influence us. So those beings from other realms, they are strangers to our earth nature, but they have to learn to adapt to our ways here on earth. They are strangers to each other, opposites to each other, but here on earth they are forced to work together, to unite. I think I've gone ahead a little bit, no? You'll read, Devin?
Into a creative chaos they are cast, where all asks order but is driven by chance. Strangers to the earth nature, they must learn earth's ways. Aliens or opposites, they must unite. They work and battle and with pain agree. These join, those part, all parts and joins anew. But never can we know and truly live till all have found their divine harmony.
That's what has to happen on the earth. No? All these contradictory forces are working and clashing and conflicting with each other, and somehow they all have to find their divine harmony. That's the meaning of earth. And when they come to earth, That's the opportunity that they are offered, that all of us are offered. So until we find that divine harmony, Janaka, will you read, please?
Our life can certainly
Winds.
circling on. Our minds ambiguity, self-tasks always lie. Till they have learned their sacred in their souls, in the light of the timeless and spaceless form. In the joy of the eternal soul and one.
Thank you. So this is true of all of us. Our contradictory, confused human life winds, not going straight, going in all directions, circling round and round, so perhaps going a little higher, but then also going lower again. The unquiet search of our mind. I don't know whether you notice what your mind does. It's always asking questions. It's always trying to fit together some kind of a picture of the reality around it. And it's like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. And very often we can't find the piece that fits. But as soon as we find a piece that fits, immediately we notice that another piece is missing. So that's the way that our mind works. And it has to go on and on and on like that until all these different forces in us have learned their secret, their own secret, each of them. And that secret always lies in their source, in their origin. Where have they come from? Where has each of us come from? We can only find our secret, our true, the true meaning of our existence when we come in contact with our source, with the truth from which we have become. He says that source is the light of the timeless, the spaceless home of the timeless, where we can experience the joy of the eternal, which is one and alone, and yet sustains all this. That's our source. We've come into this confused manifestation and into these many planes of existence from this source where we experience the light which is beyond time, beyond limitation by time, beyond space. Where we can feel the ananda of the eternal, which is beyond the manifestation. Amrita, would you read?
But now the light supreme is far away. Our conscious life obeys the unconscious laws. To ignorant purposes and blind desires. Our hearts are moved by an ambiguous force. Even our minds always wear a battery crown.
Yes. So for now, here we are in our mortal life, in the grip of ignorance and death, decay, confusion, and the light supreme, the supreme light that reigns in the transcendent realm, it's very far away from us. Especially if we are in contact with this realm of the little life. We have some conscious life. That means there is some light. But despite that light which consciousness gives us, which our human consciousness gives us, that conscious life still goes on obeying the laws of the inconscient, what is not fully conscious. So because of that, our hearts, our moving energies, the things that make us move, are inspired by an ambiguous force. A force drives us, and we don't understand what that force is making us do. It's not clear to us. It's ambiguous. It might mean this, or it might mean that. Our heart. So we are not clear. We are not sure. We can very easily make mistakes. That's why our hearts get moved to ignorant purposes. We think we're doing the right thing, but we make lots of mistakes. And especially we get driven by blind desires. We have no idea where those desires are leading us to. And even when our mind conquers, gets hold of and receives some knowledge, though even those conquests of the rational or the higher than rational mind, he says they wear a battered crown. It means the mind has had to fight so many battles and has got wounded and damaged in the process before it can get these few conquests, things that it feels sure about.
This word is an adjective or verb?
Battered. Battered. It's an adjective.
It goes with crown.
Yes, so your crown, if you're a king and you have to fight a lot of battles, your crown gets battered. It gets twisted and broken, and it's no longer quite so perfect as it should be. Battered.
Bad.
Hmm?
No, it's bad means...
It's not bad, it is battered. That means it's been beaten and damaged in the course of all those battles. Yeah. Ganga Lakshmi.
The slowly changing order binds our will. This is our doom until our soul are free. The mighty ends and rules minds, firmaments black. Infinity takes up the finite heart, and nature steps into the eternal light. Then only ends this dream of nether life.
Nether, lower life, this little life. No? This line, 110, a slowly changing order binds our will. I think in the class yesterday, Sri Aurobindo was explaining something about this. In this world of mixed influences, this world of confused nature, even if we have high aspirations, there's a kind of limit to what we can achieve. Our will perhaps would like to take us to great heights, but it's limited, it's bound by the whole evolutionary process of earth consciousness. So this is true even for the very great souls, that they're here on earth, but what they can achieve is to an extent limited by the general movement of earth evolution and what has been achieved by the human race. We have still so much to achieve. So even if we have goodwill, even if we have high aspirations, still what we can do, what we can achieve is limited by this slowly changing order of earth evolution. And he says this is our doom. We can't help it until our souls are free. That's why it's so important to find our souls, to find our source, and allow the divine force to set us free. When our souls achieve this freedom, then it's just as if a mighty hand, a powerful hand, gets hold of all these mental limitations and pushes them away. Then the power, the transcendent power of infinity takes up the actions here in our finite world, where things are not infinite, they are shaped and limited, but the actions of the finite can be taken up by the infinite and the eternal. And then nature, which seems to be fixed and still influenced by all these lower unconscious things, then nature steps into the eternal light when the soul is free. And only then can this dream, this terrible nightmare actually, of being stuck in the lower life, the little life, in all the uglinesses and pettinesses and cruelties of the little life, it can only end then. That nightmare ends and the soul is free and the being can step into the light. I think this is a very, very important section for us to read and understand, to know the circumstances we are living in and under, and why things are the way they are. Sometimes it's so frustrating we can't, we find it very difficult to accept all the contradictions and clashes, and why does it have to be like that? This is all part of this learning to find our divine source. All these conflicting forces discovering their divine harmony. And that's not happening just outside of us. It's happening all the time inside each one of us.
Why this has been given as a dream?
This dream, this little life, he says a dream, but actually it's a nightmare. It's terrible. No, we sometimes we may get stuck in bad dreams. That's what our human life is like a lot of the time, no? And especially if we look at the whole earth and what is going on. And we don't know how to change it. We don't know how to. So he says the only solution is the freedom of the soul, the discovery of the source, the divine source. Then only ends this nightmare of the lower levels of life, which are like that because they've emerged from the inconscience, no? From the darkness. They're still emerging. It's a process which is going on. And whatever high aspirations we have, we are limited by this slowly changing order, because everything has to change. That is why it is seems to us to take such a long time.
But Shraddhavan, is that really when you change, when nature changes?
Yes, of course. Then it's like waking up from a nightmare, isn't it?
But automatically the mind, physical mind changes also.
Yes.
You are another part of physical mind. Suddenly you discover this never you do like that. It's incredible. Alors it's up but down.
Yes, if you can consciously participate in that whole process, that's quite something.
Before I came, I read, when nature sees the divine and divine sees the nature, starting another part of another work inside.
Yes, it's a completely new step in individual development. Yeah.
It's very, very interesting.
But even then, what can be done is limited by this slowly changing order. That's what we read yesterday, that even for the avatar, it's like that. It brings about some progress, but there's this limitation. That's why the progress has to happen again and again, and the avatar has to come again and again, each time for a new task and a new step forward. So that's the end of the first section of this canto. I hope you're beginning to notice how each of these cantos is divided up into sections. And each of these sections has a particular theme. He's finished with that first section now. He's given us the background. And now he's going to tell us something else that we need to know. Would you like to read, sir? Yes. At the break on page 154.
The outset of this enigmatic world, which seems at once an enormous brute machine and a slow unmasking of the spirit in things, in this revolving chamber without walls, in which God sits impassive everywhere, as if unknown to himself and by us unseen, in a miraculous inconscient secrecy, yet is all here his action and his will.
Yes. Let's look carefully at this quite long sentence. At the outset, at the beginning of this world is enigmatic, it's mysterious, difficult to understand. If somebody has an enigmatic expression on their face, you don't know what they mean. No? What are they thinking? It's a mystery. So this world is like that. This is an enigmatic world. It seems like a huge machine which is just working automatically. An enormous brute machine, a machine without consciousness. But at the same time, it seems like a slow unmasking of the spirit in things, as if the spirit in everything is wearing a mask, and slowly that mask is being removed, and we can see more and more clearly the spirit behind. Both these things seem to be going on at the same time in our world. Everything's just going on like a machine, the way it's being started. You press the button and it just goes on like that. But at the same time, something else is happening. Some great mystery is being revealed. We can become more and more aware of a hidden spirit which is behind all this. And then he says this enigmatic world we live in is like a chamber, a room, a gigantic room without any walls, which is going round and round and round. And God is sitting in this chamber, in every part of it. Impassive. He doesn't seem to react. He's not moving. It's this idea of the Purusha, silent, just observing, watching. He's just sitting there as if unknown to himself, as if he's not aware who he is and that he's sitting there. And he's unknown to us in this miracle of inconscient secrecy. And yet, everything here is his action and can only happen by his will. He seems to be just sitting there, not doing anything, not interfering. And yet, in fact, everything is dependent on his will and his action. Alexander, would you read?
In this whirl and scroll,
A little louder, please.
in this whirl and scroll through infinite vacancy, the spirit became matter and lay in the world, a body sleeping without sense or soul. A mass phenomenon of visible shapes, supported by the silence of the void, appeared in the eternal consciousness and seemed an outward and insensible world.
You can go on with the next 3 lines.
There was none there to see and none to feel, only the miraculous subconscient. A subtle wizard, skilled, was at its task.
Such an amazing picture. This moving universe going round and round, this whirl and sprawl through infinite vacancy, all the emptiness of space, all the matter gets spread out. No? The spirit became matter and lay in this whirl of the material forces of the universe. It is there like a body, sleeping without any sense, no senses, no awareness, no soul. It's just lying there in this whirling movement. What we experience is this mass phenomenon of visible shapes. Now, with amazing tools, human beings are able to look out into very distant reaches of that whirl, of that universal space. And what they see is shapes, matter, forms. what is supporting them seems to be just emptiness. The silence of the void, the emptiness of space. There's a point in the development, in the evolution of consciousness when this has come into existence. It has appeared in the eternal consciousness. And it takes the appearance of an outward and insensible world. Insensible means you have no senses. There were no senses because there was no beings there. There was none there to see, none to feel. So there was nobody to feel or sense that world. Only the miraculous inconscient. He says it's a wizard, a magician, a very, very skillful magician, the inconscient, is at its task, doing its work. I think we'll stop there today. That seems to be the beginning of our universe, the outset, the beginning of this enigmatic world. But Sri Aurobindo's hinting to us that both these things are necessary. The spirit within and the matter which it manifests. The forms, the shapes, even if they seem to be just floating in empty space without any purpose, without any consciousness. It speaks to us with the voices of the night. Our darkened lives to greater darkness move. Our seekings listen to calamitous hopes. A structure of unseeing thoughts is built, and reason used by an irrational force. This earth is not alone our teacher and nurse. The powers of all the worlds have entrance here. In their own fields they follow the wheel of law and cherish the safety of a settled type. On earth, out of their changeless orbit thrown, their law is kept, lost their fixed form of things. Into a creative chaos they are cast, where all asks order, but is driven by chance. Strangers to earth nature, they must learn earth's ways. Aliens or opposites, they must unite. They work and battle and with pain agree. These join, those part, all parts and joins anew. But never can we know and truly live till all have found their divine harmony. Our life's uncertain way winds circling on. Our mind's unquiet search asks always light, till they have learned their secret in their source, in the light of the timeless and its spaceless home, in the joy of the eternal, soul and one. But now the light supreme is far away. Our conscious life obeys the inconscient's laws. To ignorant purposes and blind desires, our hearts are moved by an ambiguous force. Even our mind's conquests wear a battered crown. A slowly changing order binds our will. This is our doom until our souls are free. A mighty hand then rolls mind's firmaments back. Infinity takes up the finite's acts, and nature steps into the eternal light. Then only ends this dream of nether life. At the outset of this enigmatic world, which seems at once an enormous brute machine and a slow unmasking of the spirit in things, in this revolving chamber without walls, in which God sits impassive everywhere, as if unknown to himself and by us unseen, in a miracle of inconscient secrecy. Yet is all here his action and his will. In this whirl and sprawl through infinite vacancy, the spirit became matter and lay in the whirl, a body sleeping without sense or soul, a mass phenomenon of visible shapes, supported by the silence of the void, appeared in the eternal consciousness, and seemed an outward and insensible world. There was none there to see and none to feel, only the miraculous inconscient, a subtle wizard skilled, was at its task,